how entertaining Resident Evil Infinite Darkness is, but I did feel like I was witnessing a watershed moment. Again, because Hollywood already tried this a couple of years ago, about 20 years ago, but trying to see if they can find replacements for live-action actors. And in this case, with video game animation. See, live-action action is expensive, which is why streamers, Hollywood has been loath to do this, but streamers come along and they need a constant flow of content to stay competitive. So they're suddenly getting into adult animation. Finally, Netflix is easily leading the pack, and they're doing the most experimentation, which is why you see this show here. But Amazon has had an incredible success with Invincible, and I suspect because of that, you're gonna, they have Marvel's What If coming up. You're gonna see Harley Quinn over on now HBO Max. I think you're gonna see even more of it coming down the pipeline. So I don't really know if I'd call Resident Evil Infinite Darkness animation, because it's really like watching the cutscenes of a video game, only you never get to play. Now, I've watched cutscene movies of video games, and they're very good, but I think I excuse it because I know that there's gameplay in there. But here it's weird that something is designed. I think it would have to be better if there's no gameplay in it, quite frankly. I'm going to talk to you about where I think this falls short. But what's weird is that in the 4 episodes that they have here, it's a 4-episode miniseries, it seems like there's even breaks built in where you would play, but instead you just passively watch the action unfold, which mimics gameplay. They're like, oh, we got to go down these corridors and take out all these zombies. And you're like, you want my help, right? And they're like, no, not this time. You just sit there. And I'm like, I'd kind of like to do that. It would make make me more engaged. Especially because I wasn't too into the story. When I watch other cutscenes, I'm really into the story. But here, this was so cliche, without gameplay to keep me invested, it really started to lose me. Now, as a viewer, I prefer actual animation over this photorealistic computer animation. Final Fantasy, another game, by the way, tried to do its own photoreal movie that was released in theaters back in 2001, as I said at the beginning of this video. And there was a lot of discussion at the time as to whether or not real actors would maybe be replaced. But they didn't get replaced because that movie bombed. They made another Final Fantasy movie actually in 2016, and nobody went to see that one either. So how's the story here? As I said, I found it very cliche, but I'm not a Resident Evil fan. This apparently takes place between Resident Evil 4 and 5. So if you're super into the game, maybe this will add an extra layer of interest for you. But it seemed to me, from what little I do know about Resident Evil, that this was something that didn't have much of an effect on the rest of the game. I wasn't like, oh, this must have huge ramifications. I was like, I think this is a story you could never hear, and it wouldn't affect how you felt about Resident Evil. To me, it's a pretty standard Secret Service zombie mashup movie. In fact, when the zombie stuff came into play, I actually kind of was like, because it was such a well done Secret Service action movie that the zombie stuff I've seen so many times at this point. I was just like, oh man, I've already seen this. And so once the novelty of the video game animation wore off, watching an animated series with that kind of animation, as I said, lost interest real fast. It does, to be fair, have some good jump scares in it. I actually literally jumped at one point, and it's very well directed. I was like, this is pretty good, but I've just seen animation studios like Powerhouse do this a lot better. The only potential I see here, the people who should be the most excited about it are video game developers, because just like Resident Evil is doing here, they can make their own movies and animated series going forward instead of farming it out to other animation divisions or animation companies outside of their conglomerates, without having to have those people have creative input. You can keep it all in-house. So I can see maybe that being very exciting to as I said, this is more interesting from a business perspective than it is from an entertainment perspective. Now, speaking of zombies, of course, they're hungry all the time. And if you'd like to feed your hunger, you should consider HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. I'm busy, you're busy, and HelloFresh offers quick and easy meals that can be made in just 15 to 20 minutes. They also have breakfast on the go and other super simple options. Plus, there's a huge variety every week. You get a lot of choices. They have 50 menu and market items each week, including ready-to-eat salads, sandwiches, and soups. But look at this cool stuff I've been making. I've been eating healthy, so I love these two options. They have the one-pan sweet chili turkey lettuce wraps with candied peanuts. Those are delicious. I love that. It's fun to eat this. It's fun to eat that one. And I also love the black bean and blue corn crunch burritos, which are not only crunchy as the name says, but those are very spicy too. I really like that. And then look at this. This is new, Old Bay shrimp and sausage boil. That's fun to make yourself or with family and friends. So I've also got a new better deal for you. Go to hellofresh.com/BTT14 and use code BTT14 for up to 14 free meals plus free shipping. Again, that's go to hellofresh.com/BTT14 and use code BTT14 to get 14 free meals and free shipping. Back to Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, another thing that interested me was the culture clash, the clear culture clash between East and West. No way Leon Kennedy could have that haircut as a Secret Service member. It was very, Asian rock star, which I thought was interesting, but, not at all, it just seemed out of place. And also the lack of characters of color was pretty shocking. And I think that will really hurt this crossover, the appeal of this, the crossover appeal with the West. Like, it has a huge cast, and there are Asian characters, but all other characters of color are basically extras. And I can't believe that nobody brought that up to the Resident Evil team. They were like, you want this to play globally, right? I really liked, though, the character design of Jason, especially because, and I've said this before when reviewing cutscenes, men with that kind of physicality aren't usually actors, so you never really see them in Hollywood projects depicting action, even though they are realistically what actual soldiers and therefore superheroes, etc., would look like. So you see them in video games and cutscene movies and here and stuff like this, and it's just really fun. And they're so lifelike that it's really funny and interesting, and I think authentic to see that type of person in an action movie that you never see in most of the time. So I think that's really cool. Also, to be honest, while the faces and body movements are pretty darn realistic, body parts like hands, necks, women's ponytails, etc. are sloppily done and often break the illusion. You're like, oh, that looks so real, but that looks totally cartoonish. What? Get some consistency here. Still, I did think the first 2 episodes were interesting. They were interesting, a curiosity at the very least. But even at just 4 episodes, it couldn't really hold my attention. Usually these shows are 8 to 10 episodes, and they're all only about half an hour. So it was a quick watch at least. I watched it all in one sitting. And the story was just, to me, very cliche. But if you're interested in adult animation, there's a lot of better stuff out there. As you can see, I watch any of these things that I've just put up. But if you've seen all that, you could give this a whirl. And Resident Evil fans, I would love to hear your thoughts down below if knowing the games made this a better watch for you, a better experience. And if you don't, for everybody, even if you're not a fan of Resident Evil, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how quickly adult animation is evolving in the streaming space. I think it's very exciting. And so I'm glad I wanted to see what they were doing here, but it needs a lot of work to be as competitive as the other animated shows. So that's my review. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.